Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. Today we're going to be going through the final positional rankings, which is the forwards. So I'll be going through my top 20 forward ranks today that can obviously help you with both your classic and draft formats as well. So yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into it. If you guys haven't checked out already, the first episode of the AFL Fantasy Head-to-Head series dropped yesterday. I was joined by Horne from the Traders as we looked at Matt Kennedy and Riley Sanders. So make sure you guys go and check that out. Got another episode dropping tomorrow as well with Mitch from the Ball Boys, telling about a couple of premium mids. So you guys are going to want to tune into that one as well. Two very relevant names we're going to be discussing. So make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, we'll get stuck into the forward ranks. As always, please smash a like on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. And we are all so close to 3,000. We are less than 10 subscribers away from that 3K mark. So please hit subscribe. I saw an analytic the other day that about just under 50% of the people on the channel that are watching aren't subscribed yet. So if a couple of you that are watching that haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe button. Takes 2 seconds and does help us out a heap. So make sure you guys do that. That'd be fantastic. You don't want to miss all the content coming during the preseason and during the season proper. But let's get stuck into the forward rankings. And number one, got a bit of a different name. And we're going to go down in price. He's down, down, down. Sound like I'm talking about the Coles advert there. The prices are down one. We're going down to 598k. And we're going with Bailey Smith. I've got as my number one forward for 2025. It's interesting, right? So heard the other day that Dane just said that they're going to be easing Bailey Smith. He's going to be patient. Sorry, not easy. He's going to be patient to start the season coming off ACL injury from the previous year. So what does that mean? Does that mean he's going to be managed? Does it mean does he get subbed out in maybe a game or two early? Does he play low game time? Does he not play full-time mid? I'm curious as to know what that means. But I still think as the season goes on, I feel like he's got the highest upside of all the forwards. I know he plays for Geelong. Geelong don't necessarily have a lot of high scorers, but I just think that we've seen it before. We've seen that stretch at the Dogs when he played huge game time and averaged like near that 120 mark. He's not going to play that high game time at Geelong. He's obviously going to be eased in, but even if he plays in the 80s, I still think as that inside mid, he can average well over that 100 mark. And in a world, I could see a 105 plus average. And I think he's one of the only forwards that offer that upside. So that's why I've got him at number one. Whether he finishes as the number one forward will be interesting. But he's obviously going to be probably the number one or two forward taken in most drafts. He's obviously owned by pretty much everyone in Classic, just under 70%. And that's going to continue to rise, right, as the game gets closer and more teams register. To be honest, the other 30% that don't have him, I would like to know what exactly you're doing. Anyone out there, actually, if you don't own Bailey Smith, let me know in the comments and let me know what your reasoning is for. I'd be really interested to know because he's so cheap and I just don't know how you can't start him unless something happens between now and the beginning of the season. Obviously, he's got opening round, so we get a free look, and if something happened, then we can make that assessment later on. But yeah, I just can't see us not starting with him. Coming in at F2, a few people probably have got someone else probably at number 1 or 2, but I'm actually going to be going for a guy that's a little bit cheaper as well, and that's Jack Macrae, 732k. With Phillipou going down injured, apparently it is Phillipou as well. Apparently that's the correct pronunciation. So shout out to Liam as well from Free Kick for letting us know about that. But it's actually Phillipou, so I'll make sure I say that correctly. But with him out, I think Jack Macrae is going to take even more of that responsibility in the midfield. He was already going to anyway, but I think that just adds a little bit extra onto him for the first half of the season. He's owned by over 55% of the comp in Classic. He's going to be, obviously, he's one of those must-have guys, I think, one of the 3 must-have guys to start the season. The forward line, in draft, I think he's probably a top 3 forward. I'd be taking him at, whether you take him at number 2 or 3 in draft, I think the guy that I've got sort of just after him could be, you'd probably say is a bit safer. So draft's a bit different, but these rankings take into account Classic and draft. So I've sort of combined them together and gone the top 30 in terms of where I draft. I'd probably have Macrae at 3 where I draft him. So, but I've got him at 2 as the ranking here for where I think he'll finish the season. So I like Macrae this year, and I think he's a must pick in Classic and in draft. I think he's a very good pick as a top 3 forward. Coming in at number 3, again, is not the guy that most people would think. I've probably slid this guy down a little bit just because I want to see if he can add some points. But I've actually got the cheapest of the forwards that are going to be in this video, funny enough, just because of how cheap he is. But I've got Caleb Daniel at number 3. And the reason I've got him at 3 and Jason Horne-Francis at number 4, which a few people are probably thinking, why have you got Horne-Francis down so far? I probably could have put Horne-Francis at number 2. But when I'm looking at Caleb Daniel, right, obviously scratch the 50 average from last year. Obviously, he was sub a lot of times, wasn't playing the right role. He's going North Melbourne, and he's going to be the main distributor of halfback and taking kick-ins. We've seen the amount of players for North Melbourne that have scored massive and averaged huge numbers back there. We've seen Harry Sheasel, Colby McKercher, Jack Zeeble, Aaron Hall. We've seen them, Zach Fisher. We've seen them all back. Like Luke McDonald even had a year where he was like a huge averaging defender. So we've seen pretty much every North defender that's the main distributor has gone really well. Caleb Daniel has been brought over to North Melbourne for that reason, to fill that void. He's a great key. He's going to take kick-ins. I see a 95-plus average being there, and it wouldn't shock me if he averaged over 100. The amount of North Melbourne defenders that have averaged over 100 in this role. And Caleb Daniel is a former premiership player for the Dogs. He's a former All-Australian as well. Like he's a guy that it's a must-pick in Classic as well. 61.42% have got him there. And I think in draft, I think you can take him as a top 3 forward. He could be ranked number 4. I might have Horne-Francis just ahead of him and Macrae, probably at number 2 in draft, just for safety. But in terms of the combined rankings, I've got Caleb Daniel at 3, which leads us to the guy that's probably I'd take at number 2 in draft as my forward, just for pure safety. But he's still a definite top 6 forward and could easily finish as the number 1 scoring forward. And that is Jason Horne-Francis at 919k there in Classic. He's fairly popular at the moment in Classic. A few people jumping on him. Just a tick under 40% of people are jumping on. I'm just wondering how much upside he's got, right? I think he's going to go better than the 89.5 that he's priced at. I feel like his ceiling is almost capped at 95, just because he still will have the odd game or two, I believe, where he'll have a floor score. And can Rosie, Butters, and Horne-Francis all average over 100? I don't think that they can, just because Port aren't a huge fantasy-friendly team for us. They don't score a huge amount of points. And Butters and Rosie score so many points on their own that I don't think a third guy can then average over 100. Can he average over 100? Of course he can. Do I think he'll average over 100? I don't think he will. I think he'll average under that. Anywhere from that 92 to 97 is probably where I've got him pegged, around that average. So in Classic, you could definitely start him at F1. And if you think he's going to go 95 plus, I think it's a good starting pick as well. You've got a few points of value there. But it's not a must pick, I don't think, in Classic. And I'm probably not quite going there at the moment. But he's been someone that has floated in and out of my team. In draft, I feel like he'd be your second or third forward potentially taken, just because of the safety. So he's an interesting player, Horne-Francis, headed this year. So I've got him at number 4. And the other guy that's really safe here as well could arguably be the number 3 forward, come off, and he could even go before Macrae and Caleb Daniel, is Dylan Moore. He's just safe. He just continues to get it done year after year, no matter what role he plays. He averaged over 100 in the back half of the year, obviously battled glandular fever to start the season and started slow. And that's the reason why a lot of us didn't start him. But then as the season got on, got better and better. And as Hawthorn improved, he also got more involved as well. I still have nightmares of that game, the MCG against the Crows that I actually went to. Dylan Moore completely tore the Crows apart in that game. And he did very, very well at Adelaide Oval in that game as well, when I actually got to see him again in person. So, yeah, I think that Dylan Moore, very good pick. I think he's a definite top 6 forward. And I would... Classic, I don't think you're going there. Just with the fact that he's got the round 4 bye, he's the most expensive forward. Is there enough value there? Could he average 95? Yes, but I think he's pretty much going to do what he did last year. There is a little bit of upside potentially because of the slow start, so 95 average is probably where I got him. But yeah, Classic, I wouldn't start just with the early bye. Nearly 12% have started him, so obviously a bit of a pod. You could look at it, but I'm not looking at it personally. And then draft, I'm not worried about the opening buys, so yep, I'd be very, very happy to pick him anywhere inside the top 4 forwards. Coming in number 6, there was pretty much a 4-person race for my top 6 forwards. There's a few guys here that could easily be 6, and pretty much no matter who you ask, I think the top 5 are fairly consensus for most people. People have it in different orders. That's why the forwards I think quite fascinating. But Smith, Macrae, Daniel, Horne-Francis, and Dylan Moore are the top 5 I think that most people are looking at. 6 through 9 is very, very close, and I struggled to split the 4. But I've ended up splitting it just with a couple of things. So at number 6, I've actually got Liam Baker. So he's obviously made the move over to West Coast. He hasn't been a huge fantasy scorer in the past. That 78.5 is actually a career high average for him from last year. But we have seen in spurts him score well in patches, right? And he was always the Mr. Fix-It for Richmond. I don't believe he's going to be that as much at West Coast. I think from what we've heard Andrew McGualter say in the preseason, what we've heard track watchers say at West Coast training is that they're trying to settle him down in defence. I think with the Elliot Yeo injury, I don't think he'll be one of the guys that fills that void. I think that'll be filled by a Jack Graham, a Elijah Hewitt, a Liam Duggan, guys like that. A few of those guys I think will fill that void. And obviously you've still got guys like your Tim Kellys and your Harley Reeds and guys like that. Dom Sheed, where's he at as well in pre-season? Apparently he's running lats, but he's another guy that could fill that there. So I don't think Baker's going to fill that. I think he's going to be in defence. And we've seen West Coast defenders have scored well in the past. You've seen your Shannon Hearns have had premium defender years. Liam Duggan's been a premium scorer for us. Alex Witherden at times scored well. McGovern has obviously had good games, but obviously he doesn't have that major distributor role, but he's still been able to score well in the past. And even if you go all the way back to like a Bo Waters, for example, that obviously for the old school fantasy coach out there, one of our favourites and was a good scorer. So it's going to be a different system to what all those players did score well in the past. But I do feel like he can go around that 90 average and who knows, he could even go a tiny bit more. But I think he's in for a good year. And I've been quietly bullish on him. He was in my very first team reveal at the start of the pre-season. So 9% of people are currently on him at the moment. He's been in and out. Isn't currently in my side just in the structure. I think Macrae's at F1 for me. But Baker's been a guy I've been quite keen on. And if I watch him pre-season, he's got that main distributor role and looks really good. He's a guy that I'd be keen to start. So Liam Baker, I'm a fan of. So coming in at number 7, I've got one of my Crowies. Izak Rankine is at number 7. Some people would have him as number 6. I've only just got him down slightly. And as I said, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10, 11 could all be sort of mixed. And it's just currently where I've got them sitting, right? So Rankine's at number 7. I think we know what he's going to do, right? So he's probably a guy you probably draft ahead of Liam Baker. I think you'd probably know more about what Rankine's going to do. We'll have to see Baker in the preseason. But Rankine, he's going to play 30, 40, 50% CBAs. He's going to get a mixture of that. I think Neil Bullen is going to be a big factor in terms of helping Rankine and his game. I think what you'll see is Rankine will be in the CBAs, and then it'll be Neil Bullen will push up. Rankine will go more forward, and that might be able to get a mismatch for Rankine there. So I think he can have good games, but then there's also going to be games where if he's in the midfield, we saw last year against Sydney and GWS, I'm pretty sure it was those 2 games where the tags originally started on Dawson, but they moved to Rankine because Rankine is Adelaide's most dangerous player. He is. He's the most dangerous player at the Crows, and teams are going to put more attention into him. If he's playing the midfield, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for teams to do that, but it's going to be interesting to see how Rankine goes. I think he'll still have a good year. Whether I pick him in Classic, he's in the mix, just over 10% there. Draft, I'd be happy enough taking him. There's no worries whatsoever with that. But yeah, Classic, I'm just sort of unsure if I start him or not. But Rankine, I've got him at number 7. I think he's going to have a good year. Luke Parker's at number 8, and I've got him below Rankine purely because, again, the role certainly, I'm not quite sure what Parker's going to do. With Wardler out, that opens up more opportunity for Parker. I think Nathan from chat was saying it's probably gone from a 40% midfield, 60 forward to it's flipped to maybe a 60-40 split now with Wardler out. And if that's the case, I definitely see Parker outperforming his price. He's priced at 80 around the 82 mark. He's obviously in draft is going to be at the 65.9 average based on last year. So I think he's a real draft slider. People may forget about Parker. But in terms of Classic, it's interesting. I'm going to be watching in the preseason to see what his role is going to be. And if he's got that midfield role, he could be a potential pick, a starting pick for us in Classic, even though he's priced a little bit higher than what his average was from last year. And in draft, I'd be happy to take him. Obviously, he's going to slide a bit in terms of his average. So, yeah, I'd be definitely putting him on your you see your draft, bumping him up your draft board, that's for sure. Brent Daniels is at number 9. You could almost say disrespected based on what he did last year. So he ended up averaging 86. Last 3 average of 113, which is crazy. Obviously had that massive 160-odd score. He just gets it done. Classic, you just cross it out. He's got the early buy. He's not really going to be much value, so I just wouldn't be worried about it. But in draft, I'd be definitely happy to take it. He's going to be high on people's draft boards, so he might get taken. Obviously, he's the 3rd most expensive forward. So people might draft him a bit earlier, so you might not get him. But I'd be happy to take him if he starts getting to around this 7, 8, 9, 10 in terms of the rankings here. I'd be happy to take him around that mark. But classic, not looking at it. But draft, I'd be happy to take him there. 10 and 11 is really interesting. It's obviously the doggies pair of Matt Kennedy and Riley Sanders. I've currently got Matt Kennedy in my rankings ahead of Riley Sanders for draft. Classic, I would be picking Riley Sanders. I went through this with Warnie yesterday. We obviously chatted about classic between Kennedy and Sanders, and check the video out. We go a bit more in depth with it, but I picked Sanders ahead of Kennedy in terms of where I'd go with in classic. I think in draft is different. I think draft, Kennedy has probably got a more secure role in the 22 for the season. Treloar being out, though, opens the opportunity for both to play. I think Sanders is the more like-for-like replacement, and I think he's got the more upside, and he's about 130-odd K cheaper in Classic, which is why I'd be going him. But in draft, I think I'd be going Kennedy just, which is why I've got him at number 10, and I've got Sanders at number 11. But I think both have got upside. In terms of their ownership, so he's currently in, if we can just pop it up on the screen here. So he's currently in 6.83%. So he's not huge in Classic just yet, but I feel like the Treloar news, as the preseason goes on as well, people start looking at it. I have also noticed as well, apologies as well for the video has at times been a bit fuzzy. If you guys, apologies for that, but it's really hot in here. With obviously it's like 40 odd degrees, and the computer is starting to heat up a little bit, so it is a little bit better. But I'm going to still push through anyway. Sanders is just over 18.5%. So obviously a lot more popular in Classic. Yeah, as I said, Sanders in Classic, and then I think I would probably go with Matt Kennedy in draft. So that is number 10 and 11. At number 12, I've put Mattaes Phillipou. And he's got an asterisk obviously next to his name because obviously he's going to be out for I think up to 3 months with a stress fracture in his femur, which does not sound comfortable at all. If he starts getting to this point, I feel like he may even be taken a few spots ahead if people just want to pick him and they'll put him in their IR spot if that obviously draft allows you to do that, or they'll put him on the bench and wait for him to come back, because I think I would have probably had him as in the top 6 forwards based on what I've seen in the role and what I think he was going to do this year. But he's down number 12 with the injury. I feel like it's around this spot that you can probably take him. So I feel like you could take him around this spot. So I've got Phillipou at number 12. Can't really go in depth with him too much because obviously with the injury. But I did think he was a guy that could have gone 90 plus this year. But unfortunately the injury has meant that in Classic we can't pick him. And in draft he is definitely obviously sliding. And he was upwards of like 49%. Obviously he's down to 19%. Those 19% of people have probably just haven't quite looked at their drafts. We'll move to number 13, and at number 13, I've got Brian Myers. So again, he was a guy that was just safe for us. A lot of us last year, if you had him in your side in draft as well. I think when you start getting a few of these names here, they're just the guys that will go because you sort of know what they're going to do. They might have a little bit of upside, but they don't have that much downside in where they're valued. So I've got Brian Myers at number 13, as I said, average of 85. You'll probably go around that same spot. And I've got his teammate, Jeremy Cameron, at number 14 as well. So those two are pretty close together in terms of where their averages were last year. Cameron has obviously got that big ceiling, so you could take him ahead of Brian Myers for that big ceiling in draft if you want that look. But I've currently got him just below a Brian Myers there. So, yeah, they're the two there. I'll pretty much whiz through these last few because they're not really Classic. A few of them are Classic relevant, but a lot of them are probably draft relevant, and we pretty much know what they're going to do. So, number 15, I've got Jai Simpkin. Sneaky one in Classic, 781K. Priced at 76. He could be a guy that averages 85 to 90 if he's in the right role. So, yeah, Classic, I've just been... From what I've been hearing in Matt Sims, he's been playing a bit more forward, and Parker's been getting more of that jump. So for me, I'm probably looking at him instead, and I've slipped Simpkin down lower, but he's got the upside to go up there. Connor McDonald, early buying classic, so not really classic relevant, but draft relevant, number 16. I think he'll have a good year. I think he can increase and go over 80 this year and maybe creep towards that 85 average. So he is at number 16. I've got Jack Graham, who is classic relevant, at number 17. So I've got him up a few spaces just because from what I've heard, sounds like he's going to take that midfield role that Elliot Yeo, obviously with him being out. So he should get that role. So I've got him there. Still low in classic, but I feel like that could start rising if we start seeing some preseason games he's in that role because he's a tackler. I think he can accumulate those tackles and be a solid enough scorer. You probably need him to go 85 plus in classic. I just want to see it. I'm not quite sold just yet, but he could be someone that we look at in classic there. Shea Bolton is at number 18, sorry. So he's obviously had a calf injury in pre-season. I think that rules him out in classic. He's been playing a bit too much forward as well in practice games for what I've been hearing as well. So I won't be looking at him in classic, but draft at number 18, he's got the upside. He could actually go okay. Nearly 8.5% have got him in classic. In draft, I don't mind him. I think as an F2, it'd be pretty decent if you can get him in that range. So I have him there. And then Mason Wood at 19 and Harry Macrae at 20 to round out the top 20. That's how I would have it there. I think Mason Wood's in a high-scoring St Kilda team and 83 average last year. He's probably going to be around that. I think I'm getting closer to 80, but he's going to be around the mark anyway. And Harry Macrae is probably going to be around that same as well. So that's why I've got him there. The three names I actually left out, Toby Green, Elijah Hollins, and Jesse Hogan are probably the three that were unlucky, and even a Luke Jackson that I didn't have in the 20 just for the scoring. I think Jackson's just going to be too much of a forward, even if Darcy's out. They're going to put Liam Reedy, it sounds like, in if Darcy were to miss. But they're probably the four that I think are probably unlucky to miss out. But they're my top 20 forwards anyway in terms of how I'd be ranking them in Classic and Draft and how I'd be looking at there. I hope that the video has held up okay in terms of the editing. I'll probably have to edit it a little bit there. So I'm sort of just talking myself on the video. But I'll have to edit it with the computer getting quite hot. As I said, hopefully the video is all good. But yeah, it might do that a couple of times, like sort of be not great in terms of camera. But unfortunately with the hot weather, it has meant that my computer's overheated at times. But that's right, we got through it anyway. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the forward rankings. Do you agree or disagree with any of the rankings there? I'm sure that a lot of people would have different opinions with the forwards because you can put them, especially those top sort of 5, you could rank any of them probably one, and I wouldn't sort of have an argument against you. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of that, and any questions you guys have, put them in the comments below. But yeah, as I said, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash a like on the video. That would be very much appreciated. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are so close to 3,000. So if we can hit it even before the podcast on Sunday, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But obviously tomorrow, we'll have another head-to-head video out. As I said before, it is with Mitch from the Ball Boys. So make sure you guys tune into that. Really good fun chatting with Mitch as always in the second episode there. But yeah, until that video, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and catch you guys in the next video. So I'm out. Cheers.